Welcome to the Church of Thomas, Mixed-Handed Kids. There was recently a news story about children who basically were ambidextrous but for different things. Different tasks would be done with one hand, but then a separate kind of task would be done with the other. And in this news story, they basically said that these were diseased and non-full functional kids. This is another label, and it is another cubbyhole that is going to limit the ability for these people to learn everything about their gifts. There are a lot of differences in human beings, and many of them were adaptive. Just because an ability to feel evil just on the corner of your peripheral vision was a very good way of making sure that lion didn't eat you. Of course, nowadays it can cause problems, but it is still an adaptive that is not a disease. ADHD is a big cubbyhole that people put people in now. There are a lot of different ways of looking at the world that should be embraced instead of medicated to hell and back so that it cannot function. If somebody is gifted with the ability to do some tasks with one hand and other tasks with the other hand, why not adapt to how they are learning instead of saying, bad, bad, don't do that? One of the things that I remember is that my mom was left-handed. And when she was in school, all of her teachers were right-handed. Now this didn't really affect as many things. I mean, penmanship class was probably hard for her, but most classes that required reading and, doing talks out loud and show and tell and math and things like this were not affected. But when she got into a class called home economics, she was learning how to use a machine that sewed, a sewing machine. And it was set up for a right-handed person. And the teacher just laid into her constantly saying, you have to change it to a right-handed action that you're doing or you're never going to get it. Well, the intelligence, the adaptability, and the enthusiasm that Mom showed, she taught herself how to do it. Not right-handed like the teacher insisted, but left-handed. She figured out a way of using this malfunctioning machine that was for right-handed people in a way that adapted to her left-handed way of thinking of things. Her dominant hand remains left-handed, but I think that it's important to understand that many artists and creative people have had a dominance in the left hand. Well, there's also, we don't necessarily know what doing some tasks with one hand and some tasks with another will do. Instead of criticizing it at the get-go, maybe we should be looking and seeing, wow, are they good at something very specific? They obviously have both sides of the brain talking with each other, which is better than most people are. When you have a dominant hand, a lot of times you're not able to access the other side as easily. It's like a weak muscle in a set of muscles. The tasks are harder when you put stress on that weaker muscle. Well, the same thing with the brain. If there is a part of the brain that is really good at a particular task, why not let it continue being good at that particular task and encourage the communication between the two sides of the brains instead of negating any good things that might happen from this talking back and forth? Here are a couple of verses. This is Mark. It's 10, 13 through 16. Yep. The little children and Jesus. People were bringing little children to Jesus to have him touch them, but the disciples rebuked him. When Jesus saw this, he was indignant. He said to them, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. I tell you the truth, anyone who will not receive the kingdom of God like a little child will never enter it." And he took the children in his arms, and he put his hands on them and blessed them. Reconciler, Gospel of Thomas, verse 33. Share from the housetops what I will tell you. Remember what I say in your right ear, but also hear me with your left ear. Note the right and left sides of the brain. No one can be a light in the darkness without trying to share that illumination. Everyone who enters this person's presence will see its light. Not acting on this gives consent to the lies. Your silence will not protect you. I think when we try to categorize anything that is different from us, whether it is a problem in putting letters together, that's a new event. The printing press wasn't invented before 200 years ago. Before that, everything was a verbal communication. Dyslexia is a really good example. The spoken word is quite adept in people with dyslexia. However, the actual letters can sometimes become confused. But there are ways around that. And I'm dyslexic. I taught myself how to get around the problems that were caused by this. But it also gave me an ability to learn some languages that I would never have had an ability to do because I wasn't stuck in a very narrow window of opportunity. When we try and cure people's uniqueness, we deprive God of an opportunity of giving us gifts. So I advise everyone to look at themselves and see what it is that is unique about them, that somebody would say, well, that's not the standard. That's not how we do things. God bless the whole world. No exceptions. Angel Eliza.